Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Castlevania Season 4, Episode 6 and on, maybe? And I'm saying that because, even though my schedule, as listed on the Discord, only has today listed for Episode 6, I'm thinking I might want to actually just get into the rest of this more quickly. And there's a couple reasons. One, it seems like the big shit's about to go down. It seems like we're really going to get into the meat of this with the remaining episodes, the entire second half, basically. Because it seems like we're about to have Isaac invading Carmilla's castle and everything. We know that Carmilla's already sent to have the others return. Shit's about to go down, and who knows what's going to happen in Tagavishte, with Zamfir being tagged with something by that night creature. We might this might just the second half of this season might just be like this full on grand scale kind of big finale to this series. I still don't know how and if it's going to be able to kind of just wrap everything up, but that's one of the big reasons why I'm thinking of maybe watching more than just episode 6 today. Second reason is, honestly, I want to get to what is replacing Castlevania after we finish the season. And for those of you on the Discord, you know what that is. If you're not on the Discord, you don't know what it is, and I'm keeping it a secret from you. Basically, just it's a little perk of being on the Discord. You just get to find out like certain things like that a little more. You get to just get involved in the process of like seeing what my thoughts are on everything, and just that kind of stuff. Most of the Discord stuff is just random, like sharing of fandom stuff and pictures and information and news and stuff. But sometimes, like I post like my thoughts on certain videos or whatnot, or on certain things that are upcoming. But yeah, the schedule is one thing that is on the Discord that you don't get really otherwise. I'm not just talking about like the general, oh, like this show comes out on this day of the week. I'm talking about like well into the future too, which includes like, oh, what's coming up next after this show ends, stuff like that. But I want to get to that as well, the next show in this slot. So that's another reason I want to kind of wrap this up. Plus, I tend to do this with a lot of shows. I noticed, like at certain points, I'll like be getting to that point where it's like I just want to continue to get through this and everything. And it's like the one episode a week thing is kind of annoying to have to sit through and wait for. And I like waiting for things. I'm not a huge like binger, but still, sometimes it's like you just want to get through it to get to the next show, and other reasons as well. So I don't know how many we're gonna do today. We're starting with 6, but we'll kind of go until I feel like it's right to stop, and I feel like I just don't want to do anymore, and we'll go from there. And obviously, I'll have to update the schedule graphic on the Discord to reflect this. But in the meantime, Yeah, like I said, Isaac's getting prepared to invade Carmela's castle. We have all this stuff with Zamfir going on. Uh, with Trevor and Sypha like trying to figure out what's going on and how to help, but also trying to figure out like, okay, something might clearly be wrong here. So, but in Carmilla's camp, we also have multiple people showing disinterest in Carmilla's ideas these days. So who knows how that's going to go too. I guess we'll find out. Guess we'll see. Um, let's just get this started. Hope for the best. See what these episodes got in store for us. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode or episodes. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I probably could have reacted to episode 6 on its own, because episodes 7 and 8 especially, were definitely very much connected. But episode 6 was kind of its own thing. That just concluded one of the storylines, while the rest of it's being taken care of otherwise. So let's talk about episode 6 specifically, and then we'll get into 7 and 8 as a whole. So episode 6 is Isaac's invasion on Styria and Carmilla's castle. Isaac and his army of night creatures invade, and it's completely one-sided. His creatures and everything are so well prepared and everything that it's a bloodbath, basically. Carmilla is locked into a room being attacked by hordes and hordes of creatures. We have Lenore ends up getting trapped in a cage by Hector, who we find out has been working with Saint Germain to try and bring Dracula back because of his guilt in getting Dracula killed, as he views it. And so everything is basically going according to Isaac's plan. Hector even helps him with getting to Carmilla. And the final fight between Isaac and Carmilla is probably my favorite fight in this series, hands down. I would say honestly, yeah, I would say it is. It's super extremely well animated, but even on top of that, it has a lot of depth and meaning to it. Both in terms of how Isaac's character has evolved through the seasons, as well as just closing out Carmilla's story in a very satisfying way. Now, Carmilla chose to go out on her own will. She, with how we know Carmilla is, she's very much a hater of men and everything because of, the vampire who turned her originally. And so, in her eyes, this is her going out on her own terms, not on the terms of a man who's out to kill her. So, it's very much that idea of kind of, in a way, feminist ideas being used to obviously an extreme end. And the idea is fine. Again, it's just the extreme reaches it takes. But the fight itself was fantastic. I love how Isaac is utilizing all these night creatures to his advantage, but also how they're actually helping him. Like that one creature, actually straight up protects him when it notices that Carmilla's about to kill herself and what's going to happen. And we have Isaac and Hector talk as well after the fact. And this continues to show Isaac's growth as a character, as well as Hector's even. And they've basically come to agree that they're just going to move on. They're going to follow their own desires for once. Not going to live under the boot of someone else. They're going to do their own thing. We have Isaac, who just wants to live and wants to help other people live. He just wants to promote living as a concept. And that's a great, great concept. The idea of just living, of just being who you are and not letting anyone else take that from you, but also the idea of just experiencing what life has to offer without having to dedicate yourself to someone's cause or anything. It's a great, great idea. And Hector, he wants to live as well, but he wants to specifically live with Lenore and study and read. They both have these completely, genuinely nice goals that they want to achieve. And then we have Striga and Marana, who come back and reach the castle just as Carmilla dies. They feel it, they know right away that Carmilla had just died, and decide, you know what? We're just going to go off on our own, do our own thing. We don't have to be bound to this kind of shit anymore. All we need is each other. And it's actually extremely sweet and cute, because these two as a couple have actually been extremely likable. And you just really genuinely root for them. And so seeing that they get their happy ending as well is really sweet. And I like that. But then we get into where this season and this series is closing. Episodes 7 and 8 here, which covers basically everything else. And by the way, I looked up some of these names just so I could get their names. So Varney and Ratko have a bit of a disagreement. Ratko finally reveals his true nature, outside of just being Varney's kind of associate. He's a warrior, and he's, in his mind, a true warrior. He doesn't just like go to battle all willy-nilly. He believes that war is more than that. He believes that war is doing stuff like poisoning wells and killing people in their sleep and stuff like that. That war is whatever it takes. It's the most brutal, the most horrible, the most evil shit you could basically do. And Varney is just being Varney. It's like, he doesn't really have too much to him. He's very just this sly manipulator. And he's trying to do that with Ratko still, but it's not really working as much. But Ratko has uncovered where the underground court is. So yeah, you know where that's going right away. Meanwhile, Zamfir does finally agree to take Trevor and Sypha down to the underground courts, where everything's really not any better. Even though they have all these like legendary, amazing weapons and stuff down there, they have all this holy water, all the people down there are suffering just as much as the people above ground. So it's no better. And then Varney and them attack. Varney and Ratko and their armies attack. And it's a bloodbath. All these people dying horrifically. And you can see there's armies attacking above ground too, so you know all those people died too. Because they didn't even have anyone to protect them up there. Basically, everything went to shit. Targovishte's lost. Which is why, at the end, when Trevor and Sypha end up going to Dracula's castle, anyways, you know it's not like... There's nothing really else they can do for Targovishte at that point. It's lost. But, so, Varney goes off to try and find this mirror he's looking for, but Ratko and the night creatures just violently attack and murder pretty much everyone in there, with maybe some few exceptions. And Trevor, Zamfir, and Sypha have to try and defend. And this is after we find out that the royals that were supposedly running everything are dead. And Zamfir has deluded herself into believing that that because they were supposedly magicians, they were gonna resurrect and that everything was gonna be okay. And it was delusion, but born out of sorrow and born out of tragedy. And that's why Sypha wanted to help her so much in the end. But as the battles continue, this woman and her child who saved Trevor's life are put at risk from Ratko, and in order to save them, Zamfir steps in the way of his blade, taking the attack and taking the death upon herself. And it's like, yeah, you understood she had kind of gone insane from everything, and she even admitted that. But it was because of just terrible circumstances, and she needed some kind of hope. She needed something. And Sypha wanted to help her, but in the end, she couldn't, and it pissed Sypha off. It got her really mad, and she went completely hog wild on some remaining night creatures. But Zamfir sacrificed herself in the end to save these people, because she did really want to save and protect these people, even if she was doing it the wrong way most of this time because of her delusions. And so when she went out, she told Trevor and Sypha to do the same, to protect them. But Trevor and Sypha had to go. They had to leave. And unfortunately, unless they did manage to take out all of the night creatures beforehand, that probably means that the survivors, however many or however little there were, might not survive for too much longer. But they did what they had to do based on the information they had. Because Varney found the mirror. It was behind the king and queen, and he used it to travel to Alucard's castle, formerly Dracula's, to oversee Saint Germain's creation of the portal to the Infinite Corridor. And so, like, everything went to shit and everything went wrong, but I'm very much agreeing with Sypha in pretty much everything in regards to Targavishte and Zamfir throughout this season. And that includes with specifically how she changed her tone on Zamfir, how she went from really being annoyed by her to wanting to save and help her. Because, like, when we first were introduced to Zamfir, I really liked her, and partially because, yeah, she's hot. But also, I thought she was very fun, very interesting, and I wanted to know more about her. So then as it continued on, I started to get more annoyed with her, just like Sypha, because she was not being the best. And then at the end, when we started to see, like, the truth behind her and everything, and truth behind all of this, and we felt sorry for her, and we wanted to see her change and to be saved and all, but then everything went to shit. Meanwhile, speaking of everything going to shit, Saint Germain activates his plan at Alucard's castle. As everyone's hanging out, the kids are playing around and everything, the vampires and their night creatures and whatnot attack. And it's horrific. Like, there's one part where you see a night creature actually, there's a couple parts where you see night creatures eating the faces off of dead people's corpses. It's absolutely horrific, and it's horrific seeing all these people killed in such brutal ways, but Castlevania's always done that, mind you. I don't think it showed any of the kids being killed like that, luckily. Because that would have really bothered me. That always bothers me in any kind of movie when a kid is, like, murdered like that. I can't handle that very well. Um, but yeah, we see just how horrific it is. And Alucard and the warriors from this village, serving under Greta and everything, are just trying to do their best. And they're doing something, but not enough, because we see that the enemies bring out this giant monster that actually grows bigger once its restraints are taken off. Brings out these homunculi or whatever they are, and it's horrific, especially this monster which can breathe fire and shit. And it's like, oh my god, this thing is horrifying. They manage to get everyone else who remains inside the castle, close the doors, and barricade it, but that only lasts for so long. Alucard sets up some plans, and he and Greta go to find out what's going on with these glowing lights, finds out Saint Germain's been doing all this shit. He's in Alucard's childhood room where Dracula was killed, and is trying to bring Dracula and his wife back to put their souls into a single hermaphrodite body in order to help him navigate the infinite corridor. As well as because, he's an alchemist. It's Saint Germain's an interesting character because he started off as this really interesting, weird vagabond like character, and then you started to gain sympathy for him and you started to really like him. And then he supposedly just is gone from the story. He comes back in this season and he just slowly descends into insanity and evil. And he's become one of the most intense antagonists, considering this entire attack was his doing. We find out he'd been working with Hector. We find out he'd been working with Varney. He's just kind of dipping all of his toes into the water here, just trying to just do everything he can. He's working with this other vampire who's leading the attack. And it's just like, that's like the one character I didn't find the name of. But everything is just like going wrong because of him in this part of the storyline. And it's horrific, the kinds of things that he's willing to do at this point. And yeah, I get it. He wants his love back. And I don't blame him for that, but I blame him for the ways he's going about it. If he just was traveling through the infinite corridor and stuff, that would be one thing. But because of that one alchemist he found in there, he's completely gone insane and is willing to sacrifice all these people's lives just for his goal, which is, it's wrong. It's just blatantly wrong. But Alucard and Greta can't stop him, so they go back down to do what they can with the fight downstairs. Varney ends up coming in through the mirror to oversee what's going on with Saint Germain, and eventually, as we see at the end, Trevor and Sypha also going into the castle as well. So they are going to reunite with Alucard. I was wondering if that was going to happen. I was actually starting to think it wasn't, but no, they are. They're going to help in this final battle as well. And since Varney's over there now too, they kind of had to follow him because that he was the main antagonist for their part of the story. So yeah, this was a very action-packed 3 episodes, and I'm glad I reacted to 7 and 8 together, because those two definitely needed to be reacted to together, I feel. But 6, like I said, I could have watched 6 on its own. It was kind of its own thing. And it was longer than other episodes, too. It actually was extended a bit, probably to just finish it all in one episode, to get done with the raid in one episode. So just overall thoughts. Out of all of this, Isaac's raid on Styria was definitely my favorite part. Like, I'm enjoying the stuff that was happening with Targovishte and now going into Alucard's castle and everything. I enjoy that stuff very much. But just from a story and character perspective and an action perspective as well, I just really, really loved episode 6 here. Like I said, the fight between Isaac and Carmilla, favorite in the series, and I would honestly say this is one of my favorite episodes in the series. I don't know if it would be my number one. I would definitely have to go through all of this again, but it would definitely be up there. Um, I just really enjoyed it over all the other storylines currently going. But now that we're done with it, I am still very excited for these other storylines and where they're going to end. Although the Targovishte one kind of did end already. But where now the final part of it's going to end in these last 2 episodes. We will definitely check that out next week, of course. And this episode, or these episodes, had some notable like relationships and ships that I very much either am glad to see ended well or I really want to see end well. Like I mentioned already, Striga and Moran, I am really happy that their story ended on a very good note because honestly, I was rooting for them. As much as they were bad guys at first, but especially after they came to realize that they didn't want to play by Carmilla's terms anymore, it's just like I'm just kind of rooting for them. I just really love them. Their characters are fun and interesting, and they're such a just genuinely well written, cute couple. And I just really love them. So I'm so happy that that ended on a good note. And then we have Hector and Lenore, and even though there was some disagreement there at the end when he trapped her in the cage and everything, and she seemingly appeared scared for Carmilla, or at least worried. It's kind of implied that things are probably going to work out with them, and that's good too because I actually do genuinely like their ship too. I think that they work really well off of each other. I think they're really cute together, and it's very clear that neither of them had any real allegiance to Carmilla in the end. Um, and then, of course, we have Alucard and Greta. And it's like Alucard has been shipped with everyone under the sun in this series. Trevor, Sypha, the 2 that he actually did have sex with until he ended up killing because they tried to kill him. And so on and so forth. But it's like this, because of this season, I've been really shipping him hard with Greta. They have amazing chemistry. Like, it's clear that I think it's pretty clear that he seems to like her. Whether you see it as just a friend or something more, he does seem to have a very good connection with her, and he does seem to like her. And I think she likes him too. And I'm very much fully on board with this ship. I think it's really cute, and I think that they're both warriors. They can both handle themselves. They're smart. They care about people. I think they'll work well together. And I really do. I really would like to see them come together in the end and become a couple. And then, of course, you have Trevor and Sypha, who it's like, oh yeah, they were always going to be a couple. It was so obvious from the instant they met. And it's like, yeah, so it's no surprise here that the series has been taking it in that direction. We've had a lot of that last season with them sleeping together and all. Yeah, they're going to end up together 100%, unless one of them happens to die, which I guess is possible. Unless that happens, though, they're 100% going to end up together. And I'm really hoping the same happens for Alucard and Greta. Unless one of them, or even both, ends up dying, I really hope they get together. But yeah, now it just kind of comes down to what's going to happen in these next 2 episodes. Because we got all this stuff to take care of. We got Varney, we got Saint Germain, we got the hordes attacking the castle who have broken in. It's insanity. And it's the final stretch, the final fights. These last two episodes are definitely going to be huge. Now, one thing to note, earlier in this season, they mentioned death. They brought up death, and death has not yet arrived. Death is a continuing secondary antagonist in the games. He's very often the secondary boss to Dracula himself, and it is very much a driving force behind Castlevania. Like, even in the Super Smash Bros. Reveal for Simon Belmont, they had Death featured in that, taking Luigi's soul. Death is a very integral character to the Castlevania franchise, and so I feel like with Death being blatantly mentioned and brought up, I feel like they have to bring Death in somehow. So is that going to happen because of Saint Germain's portals and everything? Maybe. I guess we'll just have to see. But if that doesn't happen, then that's going to be just an undelivered promise, because they really built Death up earlier in the season. But yeah, so I'm very much interested to see where all of this goes. But tell me in the comments, what did you think of these episodes of Castlevania? And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.